Oh, by the way, is there
Saturday.
Okay.
Probably not.
Right. All right, we left off at the bottom of Nun Ches Amud Beis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom. So we had Machlokas. Once again, I have to sort of turn this upside down. We were discussing, if you guys can't really see, I know over there, but imagine, right, this is north, south, west, east, okay? So after the avoda was done, the Kohen Gadol comes out, and then he goes ahead and he applies to the 4 corners of the Mizbeach Hazav. So he said over there, now normally, when it comes to the outer Mizbeach, we know when they apply to the 4 corners, it goes counterclockwise from this corner, goes around like that, right? Kohen goes up this area and goes around like that, all right? So there's a machlokes over here between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yosef Glili. Rabbi Yosef Glili was that of our Mishnah, which said you start at the northeast corner, and then you go counterclockwise. Rabbi Kiva says you start at the southeast corner, and then you go clockwise. So, and then we said, why don't you go right, derech yamin, which was this way, right? This is going right. Counterclockwise is going right. So we had one answer. So now the question is, Rabbi Kiva, who says you go specifically clockwise. Yes, we don't learn it going from the inside to the outside in terms of direction. However, why can't you choose either way you want to go? You don't have to go around to the right because you can't learn from the outside, but why do you bedafka have to go left? Why do you bedafka have to go clockwise? So Rabbi Kiva, says Rabbi Kiva, Medina behu keren depaga bereisha bahu avid bereisha. Really, the first corner that you encounter, now he's coming from inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, and he's coming to his Mizbeach, really should go ahead and start with the applications at the first corner that you come upon. Because as the Reish Lakish said, in other words, somewhere from on the west side, right? Somewhere on the west side, but he goes to the east side. The Milo of it, but why is it that? Because the pasuk says V'yatza el Mizbeach. It says V'yatza, right? We learn from V'yatza el Mizbeach. Add nothing to call Mizbeach. He has to basically go ahead and pass the Mizbeach. He has to go to the east side of the Mizbeach. The cave and the Yayi by Karen, and once he gets to the east side, the Hadar Asilahu Karen then he goes back to the corner that he came upon first. So in other words, since he passed over to the east side, right, then the next corner is not going to be to the northeast. Rather, the other corner is going to be back to the west. So therefore, he says he goes back, and therefore that's the reason why it goes clockwise. Or turn the page, Daf Nun Tes, or Viboy Sema, Isvirlon Hakafa Beregel, or maybe like this. If you say that when he goes around the golden Mizbeach, he goes around by foot to maybe everyone would agree that we learned the inner Mizbeach from the outer Mizbeach in terms of the way to walk around, right? You walk around, you go counterclockwise. But over here, maybe it was machlokes, marsavar kafa biyad, marsavar kafa beregel. But over here, the question is only hakafa biyad versus hakafa beregel. One mandiomer holds, right? According to Rabbi Kiva, you only do it by hand. Since you do it by hand, we don't learn from the outer mizbeach. And according to Rabbi Yosef Glili, since you have to walk around, therefore we walk around similar to the way we walk around the larger mizbeach. Or Viboy Sema, the kuliyama hakafa biyad. Everyone agrees it's hakafa biyad. Right, because as we'll soon point out, as we mentioned before, right, the mizbeach, right, was one out by basically, which is the size of one of the corners of the large mizbeach. I mean, you can take a look over here, right? You just see the size. This is the one mizbeach, and this is the other mizbeach, right? So you can see that to walk. I understand why you walk on this one, but this one doesn't make sense. You know, you don't have to walk around. You could just stand in one spot and extend your arm. Maybe everyone says over here, here is Hakab Biyad. Over here, what's the machlokes? One holds, Rabbi Yosef would hold, right? That you learn Yad from Regel, just like Yad Regel, you turn to the right, you go counterclockwise. And the other one holds, and the other one says you don't go, you don't learn out walking or using, just going around with your hands to apply it to the 4 corners versus walking all the way around. And you're telling me Rabbi Yossi Haglili holds that you just stand there, right? Kuliyam holds hakafa biyad, you just stand there and you apply to the four corners. V'ha megditani seifa, the seifa of our Mishnah, which we learned yesterday, it says over there, Rabbi Eliezer Aimer. Now, so we had the beginning of the Mishnah yesterday, right? We had the Tanakama go through, doesn't say who the Tanakama was, and then Rabbi Eliezer jumps in, and Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, right? And Rabbi Eliezer says, no, he would stand in one place. Nichlal, the Tanakama loisvirle. It sounds like the Tanakama, who basically said is the Shita Rabbi Yossi Haglili, because our Mishnah was the one that said you start the application from the northeast corner and go counterclockwise. That was the Mishnah, and that's the Shita Rabbi Yossi Haglili. So that was Rabbi Yossi Haglili was a Tanakama, and then jumps in Rabbi Eliezer to say that he doesn't walk through the Mizbech Hazav. So we can infer from here that Rabbi Yossi Haglili held that you do walk around, right? So Ella, rather we'll say like the other Terutzin earlier that perhaps he holds up a regel, but there whether since you walk around by regel by leg, therefore, or if you don't, that's the machlokas between Rabbi Yossi Haglili and Rabbi Akiva. And Mar Savar hakafa biyad or Mar Savar hakafa regel, right? And therefore, just like I said, that one held you do hakafa biyad. Rabbi Akiva would hold hakafa biyad, and therefore there's no need to go around, and therefore you don't have to learn from the outer mizbech. And the other one holds and therefore, since just like by the outer mizbech we go counterclockwise, so to here we go counterclockwise. Or if Iboy Sema, here's my chogas. Mar Savar Saviv the mizbech pinimi kasavim mizbech hachitza. One holds that when it says Saviv mizbech, the inner one is just like the outer one. Mar Savar kula mizbech panimi b'makom chada keren mizbech chitzon kai, right? That the entire size of the mizbeach is like that of a keren, right? Of one of the horns, right? By the corners of the large mizbeach. Therefore, there is no drasha. We don't learn out. You're not learning these. If it was mizbeach, you're right. But we're not talking about like basically we're talking about mizbeach to a keren, right? And you don't walk around the keren of the large mizbeach. So therefore, it's not a good comparison.
Yeah,
they were one by one.
Each one is one by one.
Each one is one by one. Yeah.
One by one.
One amma by one amma. Yeah. So Tanya, Omar Rabbi Shmuel, around a third of the way down. Omar Rabbi Shmuel, Shnei Kohanim Gedolim Nishtaru b'Mikdash. Rishon says over here. Rishon. The Meforshim actually go ahead and take out. Right. The Gra takes this out. Right, so some say it wasn't Mikdash Rishon, it actually Mikdash Sheni. But anyways, there's two Kohanim Gedolim who remained from the Mikdash. Ze'omer biyadi hakafti. One says, I went around when I did the avoda in the base of Mikdash. I applied it. I stood in one spot, right, and then I applied it from one spot. Ze'omer and the other Kohen Gadol said, Baragli hakafti. I actually, when I did it, I walked around. And Zenois in Talad Dvarim. Each one gave a reason for his actions. One says, I walked around that just like Mizbeach Chitzon we walk around, so over here I walked around. Says, no, the reason why I didn't follow the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outer Mizbeach, is because Lamaisa, the size of the inner Mizbeach, the Mizbeach Hazav, was the size of a keren of one of the corners of the Mizbeach, and therefore it is not a good comparison. Fine, two dots. Rabbi Eliezer so Rabbi Eliezer says he would stand in one place, and over there he would go ahead and dip the blood and apply the blood from that one spot. So Masnis and Mani, who is our Mishnah like? That is Rabbi Yehuda. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, right? As actually the Mishnah leaves out the next part of the statement of Rabbi Eliezer, but he says, right? And our Mishnah says, right? And all of them, I'm just reading from the Mishnah, right? He started from the bottom and went up. Chutz mizo, except for the one except for the corner where he was standing, where he would start from the top and go to the bottom. So all the other ones, he would start at the bottom and go up, except for the one in front of him, he would start at the top and go down. So our Mishnah, this goes like Rabbi Huda, the tiny little Bryce, or Rameir, says Rameir, Rabbi Eliezer, he would stand in one place, Mechata, he would go ahead and he would apply the blood there. All of them you would apply from top to bottom, except for the one that was diagonal from him. That one he would give from the bottom and go to the top. And Rabbi Yehuda says, which is going to be exactly that which we said in our Mishnah. So and Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda stated, Rabbi Yezer, right? He would stand in one place, and he would go ahead and apply the blood. All of them he would start from the bottom and go up, except for this one, that was in front of him. Except for the one that was right in front of him that he would give from the top to the bottom. In order that his clothes should not get dirty of blood, because I guess if he would go ahead and start from the bottom and go up, then perhaps he would go ahead and soil, right, and get his begadim dirty, and therefore he started at the top and went down. And he's mimeno al tarosh mizbech. Then we said after the sprinkling of the four corners, he sprinkles 7 times upon the tiharo shamizbech. All right. So my tiharo, what is it? Tiharo. So Amar Rav Shila, Amar Rabba Bar Rav Shila. So palga de mizbech. It means halfway up the mizbech, the side of the mizbech. People say tar tiara havi. The havi palga the yoma. Right? People say, right? They use the lashon of tihar. Right now it's tihar. It's the tihar of the day, and over there that's referring to noon. So we see noon is halfway. Right. So halfway up the side of his bath. That's where he sprinkled 7 times. So meisvei sukasha shumazei namazeloi al gabi offer veloi al gabi hagicholam or afer. Excuse me. He would not go ahead and sprinkle, upon the ashes, right, or upon the gecholim and coals. Rather, he would move the coals to the side and he would sprinkle over there. So what do you see from here? This is not talking about the side of the mizbeach. This is talking about on top of the mizbeach, because we're talking about the location of the coals and the ashes, which is on top of the mizbeach and not on the side of it. So Elo Amar Shiva it says Al Gilu the mizbeach. Rather, on the revealed part, the exposed part of the mizbeach, that's where he would go ahead and sprinkle 7 times. As the pasuk says, "Uke'etzem hashemayim l'tahar." So, as the pasuk says, so it was like the shemayim l'tahar, right, in its purity. In other words, where it was exposed. So the exposed area of the heavens. So that was the pasuk. So we see tihar is another reference to the exposed area. The exposed area of the mizbeach at top is where he would sprinkle it 7 times.
And that's only in the middle.
Right, in the middle, right, not on the side. So we disproved the side. He no longer, we said, it's not done on the side, it's done on top of the mizbeach. He would do 1 each corner, and then 7 times.
Oh, in the middle.
In the middle. So Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Chananya Omer, B'tzad Tzfoni, Hunaysein, and Rabbi Yosi, Omer, B'tzad Derami. So it was so it says, Chananya, it would be towards the northern edge, right? So according to our picture, right, it would be like sort of like the top part of the mizbeach, right? If this is the larger mizbeach, or let's say this, the small one is over here, right? You enlarge it like that, right? So here's the mizbeach. So one says the northern part of the mizbeach would sprinkle 7 times on top. The other one says in the southern part of the smaller mizbeach there's sprinkle. So what's the machlokes here between Chananya and Rabbi Yosi? So Chananya b'tzad Safari Hunaisi and Rabbi Yosi Omer b'tzad Derami Hunaisi. You put on the southern side. So b'mai kimifli, what's the machlokes? Mar savar pischa b'daram kai. Mar savar pischa b'tzafon kai. Right? Now so there's machlokes as to whether the opening of where the Kohen Gadol will come out, is he coming from the north or coming from the south? So he said basically the way it's going to turn out is if he comes from the north, he's going to first come upon the mizbech from the northern side, right? And then when he goes around, he's going to go counterclockwise, right? Sort of like the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Glili. And if you hold it's in the south, when he goes to mizbech, he'll be like Rabbi Kiva at the bottom, and it'll go clockwise to the other end. And then, so then what goes happen? So Mar Savar Pischa B'Daram Kai, Mar Savar Pischa B'Savar Kai to Kuli Alma Miha Hecha the Gamran Matanois the Kanos Hasam Ya'iv Agado. In other words, the place wherever he ends up, right? The last application of the 4th corner on the small mizbeach, on that side is where he applies the blood on top of the mizbeach. So if he ends up on the northeast corner, so it'll be on the northern side. And if he ends up according to Rabbi Yosef, where he ends up on the southeast side, then he applies the 7 times upon the southern side. My time was the reason on my crowd. The pasuk says, "V'tiharo v'kicho." It says the pasuk says, Pasuk in Vayikra, right? It says Vatera Vikicho. So Malcolm Shakicho Sham Tiaros, the place where he's Makadish, the place where he applied the blood. That's where he applies. That's where he sprinkles the blood. Fine. And then then he would go ahead and he pour out the remainder of the blood upon the yesod, the bottom of the western side of the mizbeach hachitzon. So he would have the blood over here. He would finish up here. He would exit, and then pour it upon the yesod over here. All right, on the western side of the large mizbeach. And to Omar Krach, as the pasuk says, "V'as kol dam hapar yishboch," all the blood of the par you should go ahead and pour out. The chinafik, and when he exits, right, when he exits the ulam, right, the heichal into the ulam, outside into the courtyard, the first part of the mizbeach he sees is the western side of the mizbeach, right? He exits here, and the first part is the western side, so therefore he applies it over here on the west. Fine. And there was a V'shel Mizbeach HaChitzon, and in general, when you have karbanos on the outer Mizbeach and you have to pour it out, you then pour it out on the southern part of the Mizbeach. In other words, there's a little area over here, which is on the south side, because this is south, right? A little area here that they would pour out the blood over here. Now,
And that's because they have to make a matana right there on Mizbeach.
right, but when you pour it out, they pour it to the soda over there.
On the corner.
They pour it, right, but after that, when they pour it out, so you can pour it on any side. So it says they pour it on the southern side. So let's see why. So Tanur Rabbanan, Yisod Mizbeach. It says you pour it on the southern side. It says Yisod Deromis. That is on the southern side by a general carbon when they pour out the blood. So Ataymer, you said Deromis. Is it the southern area of the Mizbeach where you go ahead and pour it out to? And Ella, you said Maravis, or maybe it's the western side. So Amarta. So therefore, you say Yumad Yiridoso Mina Kevesh. Let's learn, right? They going down the ramp, when they come down the ramp, when they finish the avoda, right? From leaving the heichal on Yom Kippur. When he leaves the heichal on Yom Kippur, just like on Yom Kippur, when the Kohen Gadol leaves the heichal, the first, then the halach is that he applies it to the first part of Mizbeach, b'samachlo. Basis then, what does that say? Yisod Maravi. That is referring to the west side of the Mizbeach. Afi Ridasa Mina Kevesh. So too, when he comes down the ramp, b'samachlo, he comes down, since he comes down on the south, by the south side, and therefore he applies it to one closest to it. And what is that in that case? That is the southern side of the Mizbeach, is where he goes ahead and pours out into the Amma the remaining blood. And Tanya, we learn in a brisa, Rabbi Shmuel Omer, Zev Zeh Yisod Maravi. Both karbanos, when it comes to the par blood, the seer blood, or the par blood, which the pasuk says, and the Yom Kippurim, right? That is poured out on the western side, and also a general korban is also poured on the western side. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Omer, Zev Zeh Yisod Deromi. Both the Yom Kippurim blood and a general blood is poured out on the southern side of his back. So Bishlam, Rabbi Shmuel, Ksaver. So now, before we said each one is different, right? One is south, and the other one's west. Over here, Rabbi Shmuel says they're both west, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says they're both south. So Rabbi Shmuel Ksaver Yilmad Sasum Mefurish. I understand why Rabbi Shmuel says maybe both of them are on the west side. Why? Because just like the only pasuk we know is that when it says by Yom Kippurim, you go to the closest, right, the closest part, which is the first part you encounter, which is the west. So just like that one is in the west, so too maybe the other one is also in the west. The general one's in the west. Ella Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, my timer. What's the reason? So Ravashi Ksaver Pischa B'Daram Kai, because he holds, right? Actually, it's a good picture in the art scroll, right? On the third page, or the fourth page, excuse me, right? That the entrance is actually in the south. In other words, this is not a good picture according to Shimon ben Yochai. Over the Mizbeach is higher up. It's higher up. The bottom of the Mizbeach is actually still over here. So therefore, it's higher up. So therefore, the first part you encounter is not the west, because if you go due east, right, then you got to go north still, right? So therefore, it's the southern part, which is the picture in the art scroll 27, right? I don't know if you can see over here, right? Those in following, right? So you see it's a little higher up between north and south, and therefore, when you exit the Ulam, you still have to go ahead and make a left turn right, to the Mizbeach, and therefore the first part of the Mizbeach you're going to see is actually the southern wall of the Mizbeach. So Pisach B'Daram Kai. So Tana the Beis we have a price. So we learned. So the Bei Rabbi Shmuel, the Bei Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So it was taught that of Rabbi the yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel, right? It was actually taught by the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Zev is Zev. They agreed. Yisod Dromus, right? They agreed with the other one that you know what we agree with you that it's both cases are always in the south and there is no west and south. B'Simanach. A way to remember that is Mashchui Gavri the Gavra, right? So it says the Talmidim of Rabbi Shimon, they drew the Talmidim of Rabbi Yishmael to go ahead and agree with them. Fine. 2 dots. And then we said, Elu, Misarvim, the Amma, the Yetzin, so they pour it out, and all this stuff gets poured out, and it goes out to Nachal Kidron. And we said, what the Mishnah says by the Nachal Kidron, the Nimkarim, they used to go ahead and sell it to the gardeners. It was good fertilizer. Right, and it is subject to milah. If one does not go ahead and purchase it, they just use the soil. It was never redeemed. It was never paid for, and therefore this. No, milah. So we're saying if it's not paid, then there's milah subject to milah. It's still kodesh, right? And milah is getting hana, forbidden hana. So the question is why? So let's see. So Tana Rabbanan. So it says over there, Mali bedamim. Right? Divrei Meir of Rabbi Shimon. The opinion of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon is there is me'ilah by blood. And Chachamim Oimrim ein molim behen. There is no me'ilah by blood. Now, turn the page, right? Baruch Hashem for a lot of tosos. So ad kan loy pligi ela b'derabanan. Say ad kan loy pligi ela b'derabanan. Only talking about b'derabanan. Aval b'deraisa, but on a deraisa level. Ein malin behen. There is no me'ilah by the blood. There is no forbidden hana by the blood. Only derabanan. Therefore, the ma'is nafkamina, whether you pay a keren and a chaimesh, as Rashi points out, right? So manani mili. How do we know that there is no me'ilah? Right? There is on a derais level. It's not subject to get for. It's not forbidden for hana. So it says so manani mili. So amarula 3 terutzim. Amarula amakar the pasuk says lachem. The blood should be lachem. Shlachem yiyeh. It'll be for you. So if it's telling you it's for you, so therefore, right, and therefore it's not such a milah. And debay Rabbi Shimon Tana, that was the chaper. So it says the blood was given chaper. So the kapara the zati v'loy l'milah. It was given for kapara, but it was not given for milah. It's not subject to milah. And it was only subject to provide atonement. And Rabbi Yochanan Amar the pasuk says who? It says who? Lifnei kapara k'achapara. So it says that we want to learn that before kapara, like after kapara, ma'aleachar kapara, just like after something was used, blood was used, and therefore was applied and it was done. Ein ba me'ilah. It's not subject to me'ilah because it was already used for its purpose. Lifnei kapara, ein ba me'ilah. So too before kapara, before the atonement, before it's applied, if someone gets forbidden hana from it, it would not be such a me'ilah. So why don't you learn the other way around? Say after kapara, right? After the atonement was provided, it's just like before. Just like something before it's used, right? There is me'ilah. So too afterwards, there should be me'ilah. So Grant says no. Right? There is nothing that basically once you do the mitzvah that there is me'ilah afterwards. So one last question: there's not something that was used and is no longer subject to me'ilah. What about by Chumas Hadeshin, which we're going to have from the Pesukim, that there is me'ilah after the ashes are on there? You can't get enough from those ashes. You can't use it for your own purposes. So after it was used for the vodah, there is subject to me'ilah. So why can't blood be the same? So Gemara answers, right? Because Chumas Hadeshin has a pasuk, and also there's a pasuk by the big day kahuna, right? But it says v'nichusham, that over there, even after the clothing are used, there is still subject to milah. So therefore, since you have 2 psukim, as dafka, these 2 cases are subject to milah, but blood after the avoda would not be subject to milah. And we'll finish this sugya tomorrow. Everyone have a wonderful day, and don't forget tomorrow Shachris is at 6:15 Rosh Chodesh.